This would have been worn by a guardsman, because we can see the badge here. You didn't want to be on the receiving end of one of these babies. One Frenchman did make it inside. They were called sapeurs. They would have carried an axe. They were bearded chaps with huge busbies. Come out of the squares, man their pieces again, and actually fire after them. And this happens about 10 times. So everyone, I'm here at the Wellington Museum in Waterloo. This coat here was actually worn by the Duke himself, and this is the place that he stayed the night before the battle and the night after the battle. Now I'm going to show you around here a little bit because it's quite fascinating what they have on display here. Now this particular artifact is a bust of the Duke of Wellington, and it's actually been loaned from the Army Museum in London, and there we can see the man's noble face looking rather Romanesque here at the moment. I've got one. This is what we call the Belgic shako, and this would have been the headgear worn by the British infantryman at Waterloo. And this particular one, if I look close, this would have been worn by a guardsman, because we can see the badge here from the Guards Regiment. Always wanted one of these. Fantastic. So there you have it. Now I'm going to show you some weaponry. Now what I'm holding here is a standard British infantryman's rifle. It's called the Brown Bess. Now this one's been locked down, but I can tell you that this weapon was actually quite accurate up to about 100 yards if you were lucky. 70 to 100 yards, it was quite accurate. The problem with these weapons were it took 20 separate actions to load and fire this weapon. Now a trained infantryman, when he was trained, he knew his drill, he could load and fire this thing 3 times in 1 minute. But it had to be good, and that took discipline, and the only person who could inflict that kind of discipline, impose that kind of discipline, was the Iron Duke himself, the Duke of Wellington. And so you didn't want to be on the receiving end of one of these babies, the Brown Bess. So here we have the actual bed that the Duke of Wellington slept in the night before and the night after the battle, and this is the room where he sent his dispatch to King George saying that he'd won the battle. Now the British refer to it as the Battle of Waterloo. The French call it La Bataille de Mont-Saint-Jean, because it was Wellington, the victors, named the battle. Wellington called it the Battle of Waterloo because he was staying here in Waterloo, but actually the actual battlefield is about 3 miles to the south of here. Now there are some wonderful artifacts around here, including a copy of the letter that he sent to King George. Now this particular room is incredibly significant. Oh, by the way, the Germans call it the Schlag de Belle Alliance. I'll explain that one to you later. But here you have the actual bed that he slept in. Now the Duke, this is actually quite a good representation of the Duke over here. Have a look at this. There he is, Arthur Wellesley. Do you know that he didn't actually become a Duke until 1814? Before that time he was just a general, a plain general, a very good one. And he'd actually earned his colours in India, 2 massive battles there, Seringapatam and Assaye. That kind of sealed his reputation as a great general. And then he took over the British Army in the Peninsular Wars against Napoleon, and it was there that he starts to get his battle honours, Talavera, Salamanca, Corunna, and the rest. So by the time he actually gets to Waterloo, he's ready for this. But he's not feeling very confident at the time, probably because only 1/3 of his army were actually British, The rest were a combination of German, Dutch, Belgian, a bit of all sorts. But here we have a very faithful representation of him writing his dispatch.